We have had a look at the Admech, so let's see what the other robotic army of 40k is bringing to the table, and for the Necrons, that looks to be some really rather powerful and tricksy movement-related shenanigans. Starting off already in a much better position than the Admech are at the moment, their detachment rule for the Necrons currently is considered a relatively strong one. It rewards you for taking a lot of leader units in your squads and giving them some very welcome bonuses to their hit rolls, so trying to find a detachment in the codex that could threaten that dominance was one that a lot of people, I think, thought it might be quite hard to do. But one of the new Necron detachments, the Hypercrypt Legion, does make a very good shot at it by focusing on an area Necrons are typically really quite bad at, and that is the movement phase. The hyperphasing detachment rule means that you can choose up to a number of units that aren't in engagement range of an enemy, and then at the end of the enemy turn, you can put them into strategic reserves. So it's 2 units at incursion, up to 4 units in onslaught games, and this is a super powerful ability because it is done at the end of your opponent's turn. So straight back into your turn, you can bring them back onto the board and set them up to get some good shots into an exposed enemy unit or near to an objective to steal it from your opponent, or just use this to get away from a scary enemy melee threat and leave it stranded, on the far side of the board near to nothing. And what is a, as I said, typically slow moving, shambling army, this I think is such a strong ability and move to have. It's not, I would say, as overtly powerful as the +1 to hit from the current detachment, but I do think this is going to be a really strong contender as the go-to pick for your detachment, just because it's going to help you so much with scoring objectives, avoiding melee threats you don't want to be in combat with, and just having that extra level of board control over the course of the game. Doubling up on the really good detachment rule, there are a couple of other things they show us. The enhancement, the Osteoclave Fulcrum, is really good. It gives the Necron model and the unit he's with Deep Strike, so as it mentions in the article, you can get a slow moving unit or something like Lich Guard right up the board using that hyperphase ability and just deep strike them right next to an enemy unit. So that's really scary. You can get around the board exceptionally quickly and basically put your scariest melee unit right next to their most vulnerable shooting unit and just completely threaten them turn 2. But then if you want to get even closer, and you also perhaps want to bring some monoliths to your game, the Dimensional Corridor Stratagem is something you are going to really want to use. And what this stratagem does is that you use it in your charge phase, and normally when you use the monolith's Eternity Gate, you can redeploy a unit, and it has to be set up within 6 inches of the monolith and outside of engagement range of an enemy. So you can be really close to them because you just have to be outside engagement range, but your unit crucially can't declare a charge when it turns up. So you can set up right next to an enemy unit, you just can't charge into it, which does give it some limitations for scary melee units like your Lich Guard. But with the Dimensional Corridor Stratagem, for 2 command points, you can. So you can remove your Lich Guard from the board with hyperphasing, you can then redeploy them near a monolith 2 inches away from an enemy, and then if you spend 2 command points, you can then charge them in once they've been set up. And 10 Lich Guard with an attached character charging into an enemy will pretty much wipe out or at least seriously cripple basically anything that they dive into. So this is a really expensive kind of setup. 2CP isn't exactly cheap, but I would say this is a game-changing stratagem. I can see Necron players using it as many times as they possibly can to move units like Lich Guard around between a couple of monoliths just to charge into those weak, vulnerable, exposed enemy units that your opponent maybe thought were safe, and instead are taking, a 2 or 3 inch charge straight off the bat from a unit of Lich Guard. It is going to allow you to really focus down and wipe out key enemy units turn after turn after turn. It's incredibly good, and for 2 CP, although that's pricey, I think it's worth using it every single turn you can. The other detachment that they tease us with today is the ever popular Destroyer Cult. This is the Annihilation Legion detachment, and this is all about pure, unadulterated destruction and murder. We don't get to see the detachment rule, which is a shame, but it's fairly safe to assume it affects destroyer units and flayed ones, as that is what they talk a lot about in this article. But what it does in general is turn these terrifying murder monsters into even more terrifying, even more murdery monsters. And what we did get shown is two very, very tasty stratagems. Blood-fueled cruelty is the first, and for a cheeky 1 command point, this is the ultimate deterrent for an enemy unit that may want to fall back from you. You use it when an enemy unit falls back, and you use it on the unit that was in engagement range of that unit that's falling back, and straight away you roll a d6. On a 2 to 5, the enemy takes d3 mortal wounds. On a 6, they take a flat 3. That's nice, it's a nice little bonus. I wouldn't say that's worth a command point all on itself, but on top of that, your unit can also then make a normal move as long as they go towards the enemy unit that's just fallen back. Now, obviously you can't go back into engagement range and tie them up again, it doesn't give you permission to do that, but if they were trying to fall back and run away and, get away from you or make it so that your charge next turn was harder because they were further away, you can absolutely shut down their plan to do that and make sure you are as close to them as you possibly can be so that you can very easily get back into melee in your next turn and just continue ripping them to pieces. And for the trouble, they also take d3 mortal wounds as they fall back. So that's really, really good. I think for 1 CP, anytime a squishy, shooty unit wants to fall back and get away from you, I would be using this just to kill off 1 or 2 of them and then make sure that they can't get away from you no matter how hard they try. The other strat we got shown is Murderous Reanimation, and this one I just love. Not just what it does, but also the name. Murderous Reanimation is just a really cool, fun name for a stratagem, I think. This one is again 1 CP, and you use it after a Destroyer Cult or a Flayed One unit has fought, and they've either destroyed or taken an enemy unit to below half strength. And what happens is you basically dive in, bask in the slaughter and the viscera and the blood and the gore, and your reanimations get to go off immediately. Now, as anyone who has played Necrons or played against Necrons, getting reanimation protocols off is really strong, and being able to get it off outside the command phase when it normally does go off is ridiculously strong. So if you kill a unit, you can then replenish your unit and be in a better place for surviving maybe another following turn of your opponent's shooting, or if you are on an objective and you're fighting over it and you manage to take an enemy unit to below half strength, you can get a few models back just to make sure you are controlling it, even if they maybe have a higher OC value than you, like on a per model basis, or it can just help you get a model or 2 back before your opponent gets to roll their return attacks in the combat, so you can survive a bit better. Just for 1 CP, I think this is really fantastic and will definitely be a stratagem to keep in your back pocket for those big, important combats as often as you possibly can. It will, if nothing else, just let your units chew through multiple enemy units over a game again and again and again, and just stay at full strength or as close to full strength as possible for the utmost amount of time over a game. All in all, I just really like what we've seen for the Necrons so far. I think they are definitely better than anything we've seen for the Admech, and I think what we've been shown today does genuinely look not only relatively strong, but also quite fun to use. Like, both of these detachments sound like they're going to be really fun to play around with. One gets you a load of movement shenanigans so you can skip around the board and just try and trick your enemy and get set up in places they aren't expecting you. The other one, although we don't know what the detachment rule does, the two stratagems make it sound like it's going to be so much fun to just dive in, chase down an enemy, make sure they can't escape, and then when you are in combat with them, just keep reanimating your guys as fast as they can kill you. So I'm a really big fan. I think both of these sound great. Whether they are going to be good enough to take the spot from the current index detachment, I still think we need to see, because that is a very, very good one. But I think both of these do have the potential, especially if you are going in for things like the destroyer units or the flayed ones, or things that you really want to get around the board like Lichguard. They both have a lot of units that really will benefit from either of these, so it may be worth taking them over the index detachment, which really is what the codexes should be all about, giving you more options, giving you more viable options, and letting you play an army that you really want to play and that you think is fun. So that's it for today. I am a really big fan, but as always, what do you think of these rules so far? And do you think the Annihilation Legion or the Hypercrypt Legion will replace the Awakened Dynasty as the go-to default option? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more Warhammer content from me, but until next time, I'll catch you later, guys.